Right, so I'm here today with the exceptionally talented Mr. Nuakai Aru, personal trainer, actor, and martial artist. How you doing, bro? You okay?
Good man, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Very well, very well. Considering, so
Yeah,
getting by, making use of the time, enjoying the time with the little ones and things. So there are always positives, and I'm keeping the training up as best as I can with my limited setup at home. So, what about you?
same. Yeah, same really, man. I'm enjoying having the more close time with my daughter. I'm seeing her daily progression. She's trying to walk at the moment, so I'm watching her daily transitions of getting up, falling over, getting up, falling over. I've been around to hear a lot of her first sounds, whereas before I would have been in and out a lot. I would have missed a lot of these times. So this is the silver lining at the moment. It's tough being on lockdown. All my work, all the media work's been shut down. I'm still managing to still do some training with some clients, but just I've had to switch over to FaceTime sessions now, and just trying to come up with different ways of doing sessions and keeping people fit and active. I've been doing some free Instagram live classes with all my students because I run a regular class every week. So I have loads of students. I wanted to keep active. I wanted to keep connecting with them. So I just started to do free classes for them on Instagram Live, what's been good. Juggling, resources are getting thinner, I think being on lockdown, it's just a totally different sort of setup. So it's kind of tough, you're on top of each other, but we're working things through, and just learning through the process, trying to really understand what's going on a bigger scale. At the moment, I think there's a lot of information and misinformation and a lot of confusion about what's really even going on. It's a weird time, but I'm just trying to use this time at the moment to cherish it, make the most of it, keep fit. I'm trying to eat healthy, doing my workouts regularly at home, and spending more time with the family, really. So I'm just trying to do that at the moment.
Mate, that doesn't sound dissimilar to what I'm up to as well, to be honest. I'm seeing loads of my kids, which is an absolute blessing, more so than ever. I, like yourself, I've been juggling all the finances, but I'm good for the next few months. So I take it one day at a time, and it is stressful. But just like I say, stay in the moment and look to the positives, because every situation, always yields some kind of a positive. And the crux of my philosophy that I've said again and again and again on the blogs, on the interviews, is that we're never in control of our environment, but we are always in control of our reaction to it. And it's our job to take that and have that discipline. And yeah, man. I'm quite happy with my training. I've been absolutely I've been living like a monk, to be honest, for the last few months. I'd started a strict regime before this kicked in, and I've maintained it. I'm doing this much as I can of my training at home. I've got my very lightweight, limited setup with my weights and things. I've got a core ball, but I've got some space outside, and I've nicked one of the freestanding punch bags from the gym. I've got that in the back garden at the minute. So I'll keep it still ticking over, mate, So,
that's good, man.
Yeah, but it's all good, mate. So yeah, how are you finding it with the new baby, mate? That's always a tough one.
Definitely. I mean, this is my first baby as well, my first child. So completely new on every level. It's blown my mind, really. As a martial artist, somebody who always seeks to face my fears in life. I seek to challenge myself. I seek to push myself into pressureful situations. My missus giving birth was probably the most scary, amazing, challenging, mind-blowing experience I've had to date. And then just being involved in the daily journey of having this little precious baby who, just needs you for everything. It's been a crazy journey. The sleepless nights, the emotional ups and downs, like the adaptation of a relationship.
Sorry, bro. Just gonna jump in there. You said sleep. I'm not. What do you mean by that? I have two, mate. I'm totally with you on everything you say there, bro. And
sleepless.
Yeah. You wouldn't change it, though, would you? You wouldn't change it, no way.
Nah, not at all, man. Not at all. It's amazing. I mean, I'm ready for it. I was ready. We planned, and so I'm committed to this journey, and I'm just giving thanks for the journey. I tell you, the things that I'm just discovering as I go along is no one ever really talks to you about how your relationship changes when you have a baby, and how your relationship starts again, and how you've got to then be patient to work through and work through creating a new relationship within that. And, you know, even however long you've been together with your partner, when a woman gives birth for the first time, she physiologically changes and becomes a mother and starts to grow into a new stage within herself. Same way as we go from being just, you know, a guy to becoming a dad. And depending on how hands-on of a dad we are, we go through more physical changes, right? If we're not that hands-on, we can stay the same as we are, innit? If we're more hands-on, then we go through more changes. Like, you know, they were reading some studies that were saying you get a testosterone dip and stuff like that. I'm like, what? As a martial artist, I'm like, nah, I need to up my training again. I need to make sure that, you know, my heart is big and open and I'm supporting my little girl. But I need to make sure I keep my testosterone up, you know?
I haven't found it too much of a challenge with the testosterone. I've still sort of had the energy and the drive and everything. I have started going grey at a rate of knots. I kid you not.
Yeah,
I'm hoping the light's favourable here. But it'd be cool. I can go one of two ways. I can hit the midlife crisis and go the Hasselhoff route and start buying a pair of leather pants, get the Grecian 2000 out. Or I can just grow this bad boy out, wait for it to go fully white and learn how to laugh smugly and slightly out of sync and just be like one of the old Kung Fu masters on the movies.
Yeah, I like that one.
Going that way. Cool. You know, mate.
That'd be pretty cool. I like that one.
Your Kung Fu is no good. Yeah. So, martial arts, that's leading us this way. So, firstly, you're a personal trainer. Okay, that's one of the many things I've covered it. Martial artist, personal trainer, and you do your acting and whatnot as well, which is mainly where we met. So you've got some pretty high level clients as well. I know you've worked with Idris Elba in that respect and various other people. So that's cool. You're obviously at a very high level with that. Now my question is, I know you're also, you know, deeply into your Thai boxing, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, did the personal training come first and the interest in martial arts at a later date? Or was it more like my own route where I started physically training to improve my abilities in martial arts? I started martial arts when I was 8. And then, you know, I started to look at physical conditioning techniques and weight training and bodybuilding and things. And then I fell in love with that, you know, like traditional weight training, bodybuilding and conditioning stuff in its own right. It became another entity. And I got my qualifications as a gym instructor and exercise on prescription and things. And I went down that route as well. But that came out of the martial arts. Which way round was it for you? Was it the physical training first and the martial arts second, or martial arts and then led into the PT?
Yeah, it's a good question. No one's actually ever asked me that before. But same as you. I went into martial arts around 6 or 7. And it was really, my first introduction is my parents got separated when I was a kid, about 4. And when I'd go and stay with my dad at the weekends, he used to always let me watch these old Kung Fu films as a little kid. And I just fell in love with watching these Kung Fu films. So I'd go back to my mum and I'd be doing flying kicks through the front room and going out in the garden. And, you know, I used to love the training sequences in these martial art films.
Oh, so mate, then I've got to jump in. The training sequences are legendary. But this conversation, I've spoken to a couple of other guests, Chris Cullenbine, Chris Brady, and Lee Charles, and everybody I speak to, we end up getting around onto Kung Fu movies and things because, you know, you're talking to me, the conversation's going to go there at some point, right? But the thing is, that common theme, I mean, you've seen it in major Hollywood movies like Rocky and the like, you know, and like the training montages, they're like super inspiring, but that common theme of like bettering yourself and going from, you know, like zero to hero, or that's like one that it's a kind of a staple theme through all those old Kung Fu movies and martial arts. But it's great, and I'll still get fired up watching those today. Right. So I just wanted to jump in with that, but go for it, mate.
That was the magic for me. That was always my favorite part. Not even the end fight scenes, right? As much as I enjoyed the end fight scenes, the bit that I always resonated the most with was the transformation of self, like that training, the kid not knowing how to do anything, being clumsy, like, and then slowly mastering himself and gaining these new skills and then becoming this transformed version of himself. That's what I always loved. So
another thing we've got, that was the bit that appealed to me. Go for it.
Yeah, nice. First film I ever watched was Kickboxer, with, you know, classic old school. And it's so funny because it's not, I didn't actually start, so I was just telling you that. That was my intro into martial arts, watching these kung fu films as a little kid. Way before, you know, they were 18 plus. My dad probably shouldn't have let me watch them, but I loved them. And then my mum was like, what do I do with this crazy kid flying around my house, breaking things? So she starts to put me into martial arts classes. So I spent not even that long, but maybe like 8 months doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. And we moved to another area where there wasn't martial arts. Then I did some judo later on. Then I did some traditional boxing. And then I did a little bit of fencing at school. So I was always continuing my own stuff. Like from a kid, when I started to watch these martial art films, I just almost instantaneously would then go out and start trying to do the stuff myself, practicing. So then I'd done some classes, but then I was then taking what I'd done in the classes and then my own imagination of what I saw in the films and just constantly trying out new little things. And then as I was getting older, some of my friends would come around and then I would teach them stuff. Like, so I created like weapon forms and stuff, right? And would teach them stuff. I didn't even know what I was doing, right? But I was always a bit of a teacher and always liked sharing stuff. So if I learned something, I would then refine and improve what I'd learned by sharing it, right? And then when I was 16, a friend of mine introduced me to Muay Thai. And I'd always been physical. You know, I've always loved sports, did rugby, did basketball, did cricket, did athletics, all that stuff as a kid. I've always loved the physical stuff. He introduced me to Muay Thai when I was 16, and it was the hardest exercise I'd ever done in my life, you know. And I was relatively fit at 16. And I did this 2-hour training session and just felt like I wanted to vomit. You know, I was like, whoa, I've never, ever been pushed that hard in my life before. What is this thing? Like, I love it, you know. And for me, Muay Thai is the science of 8 limbs, you know, the ancient martial art that comes from Thailand, once known the ancient country of Siam. And obviously the Thais developed this amazing battlefield fighting art using the hardest parts of their body being the knuckles, the elbows, the knees, and the shins, and developed this fighting system to help protect them from invading nations. And so I loved the whole coordination of it. Like, it really started to teach me how to coordinate the body and unify the body. And because I was quite a reckless young man, and like, I'd fallen out of trees and fallen out of BMXs and like fallen off of BMXs, and I had created some injuries, not from martial arts, but just generally in life. So when I started to do Muay Thai as a teenager, it also started teaching me how to kind of heal my body and create more balance in my body. And I started to really get into that thing. So that whole thing of what I was inspired by in those martial art films, I now finally found a space where I was like, okay, I can go on that same sort of journey. And you know, my whole thing of like just finding myself at that same age. So I moved around quite a lot as a teenager and a young man. So I just moved back to Watford, just outside of London. And, you know, teenagers out on the street, you know, people always testing themselves. Watford on a Friday, Saturday night, you know, a good night for guys was, you know, you'd go out, you'd have a fight, you'd pull a bird, you'd get drunk, and maybe have a kebab at the end of the night. And if you had got each of those elements at one point in the night, it was a good night. You know, like, you know, so it's that whole kind of thing. So for me, learning how to fight was also about learning how to protect myself.
Yes.
You know, I wasn't around my dad. I didn't have strong male figures in my life at that time who could support me. I was being raised by a single mum. And so I needed to find a way of channeling my male testosterone, my male energy. And I needed to find a way of learning how to just protect myself. Yeah. So the martial art became a tool that really started to help me refine knowing how to respond or how to act in situations rather than react in a situation.
What I love about martial art, and I'm hearing a lot of this in what you're saying, it resonates with me. But I've described it as basically it's alchemy, because your subject matter, your materials that you're working with is violence, which is the most horrific shit in human experience. And you're taking that as your root material, and you are learning how to deal with it. Okay, so you know, the martial arts, you are learning how to fight, you are learning how to kill potentially. Let's not like brush over this. The philosophy behind it is very much one of sort of self-protection. My definition of violence is somebody pushing their internal world upon the outside world, right? Mm-hmm. And now, you know, What's the difference between violence and competition? Well, consent for a start. Yeah. There's nothing violent about what we do. Even if we get in a ring and knock 7 shades out of each other, okay, it's consensual. And I believe personally that even in a utopian society, if we were like Star Trek, right, there'd still be combat sports. But that's what I love about the martial arts is like, again, it's coming back to that theme of transformation, okay? And when you, like I say, when you have a grip on those aspects and you know that worst case scenario, you can swim in those waters, yeah? Then it's a question of taking those concepts and learning how to apply them to the other areas of your life. And that's what a large part of the blogs on this channel are going to be covering, to be honest. But yeah, while we're on, firstly, if you have anything more to add on that, please do so. And then I want you to tell me a little bit about your documentary on Thai boxing.
So I really like the analogy you gave about alchemy, because it is, martial arts is all about the transformation of self, you know, changing one thing from one thing into another thing. And again, if you're looking at the violence of fighting, is one aspect of it. But as a martial artist, it's about learning how to balance and tame yourself. So we often think if you're learning how to fight on the outside world, right, that maybe someone could become more violent, more dangerous. But the key is that you're using martial arts to learn how to go within and balance yourself, because we are all made of light and dark, positive and negative, destructive and creative energy, right? And if our own energy is out of balance, then we tend to be out of balance in our life. And so what I love about the martial arts is it takes you deep into the pressures of yourself, deep down into the deeper levels of yourself, where you really face yourself. You get to see your inner demons. You get to see your inner angels. You get to see your strengths and your weaknesses. And in that space, what I call like the inner fire, in that space, you're then able to start to mold yourself, face yourself, transform yourself and grow. You're able to start transforming some of your weaknesses into new strengths. And you're able to start understanding how to utilize your strengths. So I really agree with you. Even in a utopian world, types of training like this is key, because it's about how do you discover yourself. So you can discover yourself through therapy, right? Through dance, through art, on one level, right? On one level, in an intellectual level. But the martial arts training with a strong ethos of personal development can transform you like no other thing. Because you can learn how to just do fighting, right? You can learn to just do fighting in the martial arts and just learn. In that process of learning to fight, you're going to gain discipline, you're going to gain focus, you're going to gain coordination, right? But with an ethos that has more awareness around your strengths and your weaknesses and your personal development, and using your martial arts to cultivate your character, that the psychological aspect mixed with the physical aspect is transformational like no other thing.
Yeah, I've got to, what I'm coming back to is that point that you were explaining about the physical aspects of martial art, reference point, and how important that is, because you can understand stuff, you know, intellectually. I'd read before this time, I'd read tons of books on philosophy, self-help, I'd done therapy. Stuff had resonated with me, stuff had worked for me, and I'd gone, yeah, I get that, I like that, I see the sense in it, but the actual connection to it, I just didn't have it because I didn't have an experiential reference point. And actually, you know, the car accident provided that for me. Boom. And then I was like, now I get it. And then I could take a lot of the teaching and I could really start to connect to it and utilize it. Every book I read since then, I've absorbed it at a much deeper level. And that's a very long-winded story, but essentially that is what I believe you're driving at.
Yeah, no, what an amazing story, man. Like, I was with it. I was right there with you. And you know, it's so deep when you get into that space where you face your own death, right? You know, we do a meditation sometimes that's about accepting and facing your death. And by facing your death, it can give you a space to really see what is life about, why are you living? And you can then take hold of your life with both hands and really start to live properly. And I do one of the things in training, because I think that in the pressure of going into the hardest part, you know, when you're pushing yourself way beyond where you're like, right, I'm pushing myself so hard here, am I going to pass out, right? When you get into those stages where you're really discovering your potential, that you can then start to also refine what voices are you hearing? Are you putting yourself down, right? Are you telling yourself you're a piece of shit, you're no good? Or are you saying, look, we can do this, you come on? You can start, so with a good ethos, you can start to reflect on what's going on inside, because we often pick up all these things in life from family, from school, from society. We pick up these things that become against us. So we're walking around with like internal, so we start to be able to look at what's going on the inside of ourselves, right? We start to see, oh, actually, I've got these negative voices creeping in that are putting me down. That you may have picked them up from family, you might have picked them up from school, you might have picked them up from your peers or society, right? So in the training, you start to be able to go, you know what? I'm not going to listen to that one no more. I'm going to start to replace that. I'm going to start to say this. I'm going to start to create mantras that empower my thinking. I'm going to start looking to be my own hero rather than looking outside of myself. And so that journey of the training with a philosophy really does help us start to become more the captain of our own ship. And we can start to sail in a way that we want to live and lead our lives, rather than just being pushed by how we've maybe been raised or what's going on. Because we live in a realm, in a world where, there's a lot of struggle, a lot of misery, a lot of poverty, a lot of struggles, issues from finances to race to, all kinds of things. So the journey of martial arts in its essence is about that, how to balance yourself, how to find balance. And my introduction into martial arts, like you, I had lots of really powerful teachers, amazing teachers. And some of the teachers I had really just taught me about fighting. They taught me the essence of how to strike, how to block. And alongside doing that, you do gain discipline, right? Because you can't learn without being disciplined to listen. You can't push yourself without being disciplined to push beyond the pain. But a lot of the early stages of my teachers, they had great knowledge around fighting, but not necessarily the personal development side of the martial art. And I was really lucky that in my early 20s, I started to train with Arjan Vinny, who was the head coach of a gym called KO at the time. It was probably one of the largest Muay Thai gyms in London.
Yeah,
and he started to teach me this traditional side of Muay Thai that was much more connected to the ancient Muay Baran, what's the ancient battlefield art. And he took discipline to another level where I really started to understand inner discipline. And being a wild youth, I really needed to learn discipline. I respected that strong attention. If you were kind of like more slack and more kind of not really very focused, as a young kid, I wasn't really going to listen that much. Whereas he was very straight down the line, started to use martial arts and teach me about how good martial arts is about a vehicle for personal development. And he taught me the traditional side of Muay Thai and Muay Baran, where I started to learn the Thai language and the structure of learning a grading syllabus to work up. And a lot of places that teach Muay Thai don't teach a grading syllabus. No. But this syllabus was linked to Thailand that had been developed by an organization in Thailand called the Crew Muay Association that teach Muay Baran and Muay Thai. And this journey, again, through my own study of philosophy, like you, I've read loads of books on philosophy and history and spirituality. So I was continuing to develop my own understanding and reflection of life. I spent a few years doing salsa and bachata, doing some Latin movement. And I had another really powerful teacher, a guy called Rob Anthony. And he started to really teach me that if you know how to kill somebody, you should also know how to heal somebody. Right? And the same for yourself, right? If you know how to push yourself through physical hard training, you're going to get injuries. So you need to make time to know how to help yourself recover, right? You need to know how to eat healthy, how to soak your body, how to get massages, how to do, to balance hard and soft. And we used to take part in interclubs with the Shaolin Temple. They used to come and take part, some of their fighters would come and take part against our Muay Thai fighters. And I would always watch them. And when it came to the fighting, it was questionable. Sometimes the Shaolin guy would win because he had a strong heart. Sometimes the Muay Thai guys would win and had a strong heart. But technically, I always used to think personally, my opinion is that the Muay Thai had a slightly stronger system of fighting. But the Shaolin guys always seemed more rounded martial artists. They seemed to be more attuned to their body. They seemed to have a greater capacity for movement. And so I spent a little bit of time studying with the Shaolin monks as well. And I studied Qigong and a bit of Tai Chi. And I'd studied Tai Chi before and a bit of Qigong before. But I started to see that it's so important to have that hard and soft, you know, the rough and the smooth, to do with the work where you're working on the meditation, you're working on energy transference, you're working on flow, right? As well as that explosive power, strength, stamina, endurance, the aggressive, you know, and I started to really love the balance of that. So the hard and the soft, you know, bringing that harmony together, working on the yin and the yang aspects of self. And that's partly my own love of philosophy mixed into my love of martial arts and all those different teachers who taught me different things as I went along. And then, you know, because one of your first questions was how did I get into the personal training or the martial arts? So for me, my journey as a martial artist, because I had quite a few injuries, it became very much about self-healing and self-development. I loved fighting. I've always loved fighting, but I had injuries, right? So I always had injuries. Like I dislocated my hip as a kid. Like my hand nearly got cut off at one point, so I damaged the main nerves and the artery in my right hand.
Nice.
I always used to push myself so hard, people wouldn't even know that I'd had these injuries, but I did. You know, I was never 100%, right? I was always at a disadvantage. And so I went down the fighting route. I did a little bit of amateur fighting, enjoyed it, but realized that in that stage, it was just going to give me more injuries, right? So I continued to train hard. I continued to train with other fighters, but I then started to go more down the teaching route rather than the fighting route. And I'm also a filmmaker. So I started to do more research. I worked with certain production companies. So I then got into a journey of like my love of history and culture. And I started making documentaries on African history and culture, and looking for untold stories about anthropology and history and stuff like that. So I then used my martial arts to give me the strength of character to go into the unknown, to go into these places where no one was really going and trying to document these stories and these histories that no one was really talking about in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And my martial arts gave me that backbone. It gave me that courage. It gave me the fitness to just go off into the unknown, travel into military-run governments or travel deep into jungles or deep into deserts. And it was my martial arts that gave me that kind of confidence. You know, I probably could have died anyway, but it always just gave me the strength to realize that, look, if something goes down, I've got fitness to either duck out. I've got alertness to be able to see danger before it sees me. And like, if I need to, I've got combat skills where I can protect myself if I need to, right? But more than anything, the martial arts have given me composure to be able to be present, to not be in a space of just reaction, but to be acting, to be driving and looking out for where I'm trying to take myself in my life. And so I've been doing martial arts for maybe 15 years. And I helped another friend of mine set up a martial arts class. And then as I continued doing my own training, I got to a teacher level, being able to share and to teach back. And then I got graded by Arjan Vinny as a 12th Khan Muay Thai instructor. And then I ended up taking over a friend of mine's class. He only had 3 students at the time, right? And then I just slowly have built that up. So I've been teaching that class now for about 15 years. I've got hundreds of students from just teaching one class a week. And from doing the one class a week, for me at first, it was like, as a martial artist, teaching took away from me training. I would have trained on that day, all right? But I've always been a natural teacher, and I always loved that exchange. And I think the more you refine something, having the ability to share it can help you refine it and improve it. So in those early days when I was also still fighting, I would just train hard and then share my hard training with other people. And then we would always grow together. And so then I started just getting more referrals. Then I went into more of the personal training thing. People wanted to do one-to-one training. My class is right in the city, Liverpool Street. So I had a lot of kind of like IT guys, bankers, investors, you know, people in marketing. So they weren't necessarily interested in the fighting. They were really interested in the personal development that I was sharing through the martial arts. So I then started teaching functional fight training to people for personal development and for fitness. And so along my journey, I'd gone and done like level 1, level 2, level 3 in personal training and stuff. But I never pursued it at that time. Like the filmmaking took me a different direction. But then jump forward years later, then people started wanting more of the personal training stuff. So then my love of martial arts then kind of like evolved into me becoming a personal trainer. And then I started to work in gyms as well. So then I was balancing these two worlds. The one world was my filmmaking, and I'd be going off and I'd spend maybe 2-3 months in a country following leads, making a film on a particular subject. And then I'd come back and I'd get one of my senior students or another instructor and teacher to run my classes while I was away. And then I'd come back and I'd carry on with the martial arts. So for a long time, you know, I was like an adventure documentary filmmaker and a martial artist teacher. And as I've got older, you know, I've tried to then bring those two worlds together. So I got to a stage where I was like, look, the documentaries I'm making, they're really cool, they're interesting, but they're only reaching a certain group of people, you know, like they're reaching people who are really wanting to understand history and philosophy and these different types of subjects. I want to make some stuff that just reaches your everyday person, you know, someone who, you know, is not necessarily trying to look at life from a deep point of view, but they can maybe benefit from some more deep reflection on things. Sure. They want to see some entertainment, right? So I thought, let me go and study acting. Maybe it's time now, because I've done a bit of presenting, but I thought now it's maybe time. Look, I want to go and do some action acting, right? I want to go and make some films, some shorts and some features. I want to be involved in some films where I can bring together my martial arts skill, my adventure skill, and my ability to act, right? So I studied acting for 2 years. Just towards the end of that, one of my cousins made a film called 100 Streets, and Idris Elba was in that film. And then my cousin was like, look, do you want to sit, like, you're doing acting, do you want a role in it? So he gave me this really small role, right? It was a dead role, to be honest, right? He should have given me a better role, but anyway, so good. So good. He gave me a role, right? It was cool. And the role I had, I was just basically an extra with a line, but it meant that I spoke to Idris in the film, right? And I had to do this line where I asked this character for a photo, and he blows me up. He's like, nah, mate, not right now. I've got to chat to the family. And I had to do this line about 50 times. I'm like, man, this is killing me, man. Like, how many times am I going to have to ask you for a photo and you tell me no? And I was like, man, this is my intro to acting. Great opportunity. I was in a feature film, star of Idris Elba, but the line and the role was you know, wasn't the sort of role that I was aiming for, right? We all got to start somewhere. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And then just randomly, how the story went is Idris Elba and Gemma Arterton were the two lead stars in this film. So I was in the middle of doing a stage combat course at the time that they were shooting the film. Yeah. And I had to run from set and get to Holborn. We were in Battersea in London, and I had to get to Holborn to go and do my my rapier and dagger and unarmed combat exam, right, for the stage combat course I was doing. So I said to the runner who was looking after me, I was like, look, literally I've got about half an hour. I've got to get back to my course. I'd only had half of the day to come and do this shoot. It's ran over 2 hours, like, you know, films always do.
Yeah.
And she was like, all right, look, I'm going to get you a car to take you back to base camp, and then we'll send you in a cab. So she goes, look, go get in that car over there. And I was like, all right, fine. So I went and get into the car, and then Gemma Arterton was sitting in the back. And you know how it often is on set. You don't really get a lot of time to talk to big A-list celebrities, right? You might just get a hello and a wave, but they're not really going to mix too tough, right? So even when I did the scene with Idris, there wasn't much conversation apart from the lines, right? So I get into this car, and then Gemma's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, oh, hi. So I start having this chat with Gemma, right? So me and her having this great talk. You know, she was asking me what I do. And then I was saying, you know, I do martial arts, and I'm an actor, and I'm studying this course. And I'm right now just about to go and do this exam. And then Idris gets in the passenger seat of the front of the car, right? And he's like, you right? And I'm like, so then he overhears my conversation with Gemma, right? And he weren't even talking to me at first. He just overhears this conversation. And then he's like, you do Muay Thai? And I'm like, yeah, I do Muay Thai, man. I teach Muay Thai. He was like, man, I love Muay Thai. So then me and Idris just hit it off, and we got talking and stuff, and then we exchanged details. He then came to my Muay Thai class in London, right? He turned up. He walked into a gym, you know, came and took part in one of my 2-hour classes, right? So people in the gym were like, what? Is that Idris Elba? Like, Idris Elba's in your class? So me and Idris, we got on really well. He did that class there. Then he was doing a documentary called Idris Elba, the Fighter.
Seen it. Yeah.
And then I was one of his trainers on that documentary. And I also was his personal trainer while he was in South Africa for 3 months on the Dark Tower. So we got on really well with that. I, was doing fight training with him every day. And that was kind of my entry level into a massive, big global film production, right? What was just immense, amazing experience. So I just finished acting, like studying acting, and then had gone into that kind of world. But then I was working with Idris, but from the martial arts point of view, right? And as a personal trainer and teaching in martial arts. So at the same time, I wanted to get more into the acting side of it, not just in the personal training and the martial arts side of it. So after that, that's been my journey. I've done like a variety of short films, working on some more features, doing some more documentaries around the martial arts. And then, I started to link up with you guys, doing the stage, doing more of the amazing stunt stuff. What for me, going from doing practical real fighting to doing like the stage combat stuff to then working with you guys was been an amazing journey. Because like obviously a lot of the stage combat stuff was so like, it was like so fake, right? To then working with you and Ray, it was like, yes, this is what I've been really wanting to get into. It's like how to make real fighting look like screen fighting, look real, have real power and movement and explosive dynamism in it, but without hitting each other, right?